On Friday, October 24, 1975, Market to Market kicked off a 50-season run with its first broadcast under the name Iowa Farm Digest. The mission of the show was the same as it is today: to provide the people who live and work in rural America with in-depth news reporting and reliable commodity market analysis.
Produced October 15th.
Hello, I'm Chet Randolph. Welcome to the first edition of Farm Digest.
In October of 1976, our name changed, but the mission remained the same. Along with executive producer Dan Miller, Bill Hanley was among the first reporters on the show.
It's that kind of impact that we were never prepared for if you went into television. You didn't think stuff stuck around, and you didn't think you would have that kind of an impact on people. And obviously, Market to Market's had a huge impact on so many people in that industry.
In those early days, like today, our producers and crews covered stories and events in rural America from Maine to California. Over the course of the second season, we covered the cost of lobbying for upgrades to what was already considered to be an aging lock and dam system. There was a report on water pollution from feedlots and a segment on organic farming.
Lest anyone think that all of this was the result.
In our third season, President Carter's Secretary of Agriculture, Bob Berglund, talked policy and the future of agriculture with our host, Chet Randolph.
I think largely it's over expectation. What is the cost of production? Our studies show that the cost of producing corn ranges from a low of $1.74 a bushel to a high of $12.
In Season 4, we looked at meat prices and the use of nitrites in meat production. Our coverage of innovation in rural America carried into our fifth season with an in-depth look at ethanol production, or what was then known as gasohol. The fledgling industry provided some hope that the renewable fuel might in some way hold back the effect of price-depressing, bin-busting harvests. As 1980 rolled into view, we changed our name from Farm Digest to Market to Market.
Hello, and welcome back to Market to Market.
That January, President Jimmy Carter rocked the agricultural world by placing an embargo on grain sales to the Soviet Union in response to its invasion of Afghanistan. By his own admission, Carter was hoping to cause a chain reaction where the lack of feed grains would cut swine production in the USSR, and the threat of a food shortage would push Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev to pull his troops out of the war-torn country.
If the two-day trading suspension was supposed to...
The move, as reported in this edition of Market to Market, caused the Chicago Board of Trade to suspend trading for 2 days. The first sessions after trading resumed saw grain prices go limit down. The embargo remained in place until it was lifted by President Ronald Reagan in April of 1981. The Soviets would remain in Afghanistan for 10 years before leaving in defeat. According to some sources, the effects of the embargo lingered for nearly 2 decades.
More people jump on the catfish bandwagon.
Market to Market continued its exploration of entrepreneurial ventures with another alternative to traditional row crops and animal production.
And protest again.
Our focus on the news of the day included more than one discussion about who should have control over a farmer's land.
Hundreds of west central Minnesota farmers have been doing for 7 years, protesting a power line.
I rise in support of the gentleman's amendment.
As Season 7 dawned, we were covering the fight over the 1981 Farm Bill. The legislation included titles that expanded crop insurance and created milk marketing orders for the dairy industry. President Reagan signed the Agriculture and Food Act of 1981 in late December. We also took some time to go 2 decades into the future for a look at how we would feed a hungry world in the year 2000. Food safety has always been a subject we follow, and as part of our 8th season, produced in 1983, it was a look at pork.
So I guess the decision lies on Rich Reiner, and I have made the decision to postpone this sale.
In the early 80s, we began covering a major story that would dominate agricultural news for nearly a decade. Rural America was struggling with sky-high interest rates, a growing bubble on land prices, and record debt among the nation's farmers. The combination would create the 80s farm crisis. Sid Sprecher, Market to Market's executive producer from the early 80s to the early aughts, had a front row seat.
A lot of the victims of the farm crisis were farmers who were leveraging their farms to help the son or two sons get into farming. They weren't in debt until they started expanding to help their heirs. And so that was one of the cases that happened a lot.
So I'll take out the farmer's share, and that's the heel and one slice. That's what the farmer put in. That was the heel and one slice was all he put in.
And through it all, we explored prices, prices, and prices. Yes, this is John Roach, who had already been analyzing the markets for the program since 1978. As fallout from the farm crisis increased, we covered weather conditions that put more pressure on the nation's farmers, protests at farm auctions, and crosses on courthouse lawns across America. While we devoted time in Season 9 to cover the growing farm crisis, we also looked at climate change theory and dug deep into concerns over the lack of diversity in row crops. In our 10th season, we followed the story of the devastating famine in Ethiopia and took an early look at genetically modified seeds. Our reporting on the farm crisis continued. We added question-and-answer phone-in shows to our regular lineup of programs and covered events like the National Crisis Action Rally.
And then David Stockman comes along and says, unlike Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln, farm bankruptcies are needed. Forget David Stockman.
For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.